Hey guys, Moshe from Kaler here. Today we have a 1985 Gibson Invader. Never heard of an Invader before. That was purchased by our good friend Richard in Maryland. He bought it sight unseen. He's in Maryland, and this guitar was over at, I think it's called Imperial Guitars in Orange County, California. I'm in Covina, California, so that's about an hour away. He called initially because he wanted to do a 20% trade-in discount on this old Kaler Flyer, which works fine, but he wants a 2300 T, which is steel cam, Teflon glass rollers, and of course it also has the lockdown feature. So we're going to put this guy on there after we replace this. I also found that the EMGs, well, obviously they're not original to the guitar. The Kaler is, but the pickups are not. The wiring job was not done very well. It was really crappy, and I'm going to go ahead and rewire it. I'm going to just use the a quick connect pots and stuff because that's how we do it now. It's a lot easier than having to go in and having to rewire the whole thing. But in the process, I also found that the switch is bad. The neck position works, second position works, both pickups. But then when we go to the bridge, I get no signal. So I've determined that it's the switch. Also, it's doing this stupid thing that sometimes these switches do where you're in the mech, you want to go in the middle, and instead it goes to the bridge. So we're replacing that. And that kind of escalated to, okay, I'll rewire it for you, replace the Kaler. I told him that I recommend a refret on this one just because the frets are so low and there's lots of wear marks, and if I do a grind and polish, there isn't going to be any fret left. So I suggested we go with a refret, and I recommended we go with the Jescar 58118 fret, which is huge. It's the biggest fret that I'm aware of. It's like the Dunlop 6000, but made by Jescar, which I prefer. So we're going to refret it with big fat-ass Prego frets, and we're going to replace the nut. He wants to black it out, so we're going to go with a Graphtec Tusk nut. We're going to do that, and we're going to replace the string lock, which is fine. The one it came with is fine, but we're doing a new bridge, so might as well do a new string lock. So stay tuned for that. I always use solder to remove them, to apply the heat, so that if there's any adhesive, the heat will break it down. So that's the very common, oh, why don't you just use the soldering iron? Why do you have to use solder? Well, I suppose I can do it that way, but the thing is, when you remove the iron off the fret immediately, it starts to cool down almost immediately. So with the solder, the heat stays on there a lot longer. Then I'm able to go right in and remove the fret with minimal chipping. So that's why I do it that way. I've had good results doing it that way, but hey, your mileage may vary. Some people just do it like that, and that's fine too. And if I didn't have solder, I'd do it that way as well, but I have solder, so I'll go ahead and do it this way. Show you how to do it one more. It can be a little tricky sometimes to get to the bottom of the fret to pry it out. So run the solder on the fret until you see the glue underneath start to bubble a little bit, or you see it smoke like that, and come in with your plier, your fret nippers, whatever, and remove like so. The frets have been removed, and I straightened the neck without any string tension, of course, and without the frets. So the neck is completely straight. It's a 12-inch radius. It's a Gibson, and I measured it, and it actually is a 12-inch radius, unlike a lot of Gibsons that could waver from a 10 or sometimes even rounder. But it's a 12-inch radius, and I already made a couple of passes with my 12-inch radius beam with some 220 sandpaper. And as you can see, this area here hasn't been hit, so it's not the most uniform neck. So I have to continue until all that has been hit. There's no shiny area anymore. Once that's done, then I know the neck is completely straight and perfectly radiused. Then we'll start with the fretwork. Okay, it's getting better. You can see this area here has been hit. So we're slowly getting to this area here. Once it's all hit, then we're good. So I really enjoy the Dunlop 6000 fret wire, or what I'm using here, the Jescar 58118, because I like them really tall, really wide frets. I have really big hands, and I find that, of course, the taller fret, there's a bigger gap between the fretboard and my finger, or yeah, that sounds about right. So I don't want to make contact with the board, at least as minimal as possible. So it's sort of like what a scallop board feels like, where your finger never really comes in contact with the board, but also gives you plenty of room to really dig in and grab the fret for bending and hammer-ons and pull-offs. Kind of like with a tall fret, like it's kind of like a trampoline effect. You hammer on the note, and that since your finger never really makes contact with the board, excuse me, that kind of helps you get off the fret when you pull off. I find that it's really comfortable because of that, using these really tall, really fat frets. So that's part of the reason I think a lot of metal guys like extra jumbo frets. I was wondering if you guys had any preference, or if you're just maybe not indifferent, but have a bunch of different guitars. They all have different fret sizes. Whenever I work on my guitars, I always go with these larger frets, just because this is home to me, so it feels comfortable, and I tend to want to play these guitars with the larger frets more than the ones that don't. So hey, it's all about playing. So I recommended my friend to use these. I think he's really gonna like these. These are the frets that most of my clients use. My friends use them, and plenty of life. I mean, the problem with this guitar is that the frets were really low. They were so worn out, and they were already pitted. So I knew they weren't going to survive a grind and polish. So this is why we're doing it. And in the future, as these wear out over time, which these frets are great. They're really strong. They're not stainless steel. I hate stainless steel. They destroy my tools. But these frets are so high and so tall that it'll survive tons of releveling if it ever needs it, and it'll likely just last the lifetime of the instrument, lifetime of the owner too. Sorry, Richard. But these frets are probably going to outlast you, I should say. So that's a little rocky right there. Where is it? Right here. Excellent. so we're almost done. Second fret here. And then after that, one more. Then we're going to clamp them down after they're all installed. Okay. Ugh. Perfect. One more. All right. All right, how did this one turn out? Little clicky. Yeah. Right here. Beautiful. Now we clamp them down and let them rest for rest. Let them sit for about 24 hours or so. Probably more like 12. Okay, so now we're doing the, now that I deburred the fret ends, now we're going to hit the beveling with sandpaper. Now I do 320 all the way up to about 1,000. And then I finish it with a quadruple zero steel wool. So let's go. Yes, sir. So you know it's getting hit. It's getting hit nicely. So after we do this, then the fret leveling begins. These are really tall frets, of course, like I said, like 100 times already. These are Jescar 58118. Same as Dunlop 6000s. And I don't like, of course, most of us don't want to remove it. You know, I want to remove as little material as possible because I want to keep the frets as tall as possible. starting the leveling process. I've marked all the frets black so that I can see how much material I'm removing. Got my 12-inch radius beam, and here we go. All right, let me back up a little bit. Let's take a look here. Yeah, it's pretty even. This one hasn't been hit very much. This was it, the 21st fret? But all the other ones, that was 10 passes just now. Have seems it's hitting all the frets pretty evenly. So that's what I wanted to see, because that means I'll likely not have to remove a whole lot of material until these are all level. So we'll continue with that. The way I polish my frets works best for me is I'll start with 320. I use these spongy pieces of sandpaper. I go 400 this way, then I'll take 320 and go this way. I find that doing it that way and progressively going higher with the grit gives me a much better finish with no scratches whatsoever. So that's what I'm going to be doing. So I'm just looking for a piece of new 400. Let's see. Here we go. Okay, this will do. All right, let's go. Once again, let's see if this shows, because gosh darn it, that is a nice shine. But I am cursed with poor lighting. Let's see. Well, guess you're just gonna have to take my word for it. This is what I've been using lately for my fretboards. This SIT Lemino is fantastic. You put it on and it really brings out the color of the board, which other Lemino's I noticed haven't. So going to use this again. Let's see. So the fret work is done, obviously. Fret job is good. I am still waiting on the new nuts. We're going to black it out, and Richard wants a black nut, so I went with a Graphtec Tusk nut, of course, in black, because those sound fantastic. Very bright, very snappy, kind of what you would expect from bone, just black in this case. So when that one shows up, I'm going to go ahead and install it, but I think in the meantime, I'll show you what I did with the Kaler route. Got the new Tusk nut glued up in there. I got it low enough to where it's not sticking up so much, you know, pretty level to the fret, just maybe 20 thousandths of an inch above. So the rest now I'm going to go ahead and cut the slots to the proper height. This is a really well-built guitar. The neck is fantastic. Obviously I had the neck straight with no tension when I was doing the fret work, but now with under string tension, I barely had to adjust the neck to get it straight again. If anything, I had to loosen it a little bit to get it straight, and that just tells me that this is a really solid. You know, it holds its tension. You know, it's from 1985. It's 41 years old. It's really well built instrument. 85, yeah, I was 10 years old in 85. How old were you guys? Most of you, were any of you even born? I'm sure a lot of you were, but if you weren't born in 85, or you know, till after 85, chime in on the comments. I'd love to hear from you, because time is a funny thing. You don't really think much about it until you start thinking back at things and like, oh yeah, when I was in 5th grade, you're like, 5th grade, that was 85. 85 was, you do the math, it's 41 years later. Holy crap, where did time go? So yeah. So the strings, the string height at the nut right now, I took it down as far as I could, and still had clearance, of course, over the first string. So now I'm just cutting each individual slot perfectly to the radius, but I almost had it there. Took this on the belt, you know, to the belt sander, and leveled it down to almost where it's supposed to be. It's just the center strings I have to take down a little bit. So that's what we're doing. A sacrificial set of strings. I use SIT Power Steels. Love them. But since this guitar has a string lock behind the nut, if I had the lock, the string lock behind the nut now, I wouldn't have a whole lot of room to get in there and cut the slots. So I had to put on a sacrificial set of strings, which hurts, but we're going to replace the strings once I'm done. You know, all that tuning, retuning, you know, detuning, retuning. These strings will be fried by the time it's done, so we're going to slap on a fresh set on those anyway, I should say. Okay. The slots have been cut. The string action has been set. We're going with a 1/16 of an inch at the last fret. I measure my string height at the last fret. Yeah, so it's a 1/16 all across. So that's very low action with no buzzing. Now we're going to do the intonation here. And we are using 9s down a half step, a la Slayer. That one's on. That one's on. You know, I preset these before I installed the bridge, and I think I got it. Well, the high E and B are intonated. Okay, fine. The G string is a little sharp, so we're going to move that sucker back a little bit. Cool. This is obvious. Intonation is one of the last things you're going to do in a setup. The neck is first, your nut, and then your intonation is last. When the string, when you play the 12th fret note, when you tune the string and you get it in tune, and then you play the 12th fret note, if the note is sharp, you need to move the saddle back. If the note is flat, you need to move the saddle forward. So, sharp back, my back. That's how I remember, and then flat forward. I know, clever, but it works for me. So moving on to the next one. All right, so we are at D, or in this case, C sharp or D flat. All right. A little sharp, so we're going to move that back. What string gauges do you guys like to play? Do you play in standard tuning? Do you play tuned down? In this case, Richard here wants 9s tuned down a half step to E flat, which I think is awesome, because I find that a lot of people, most people, when they tune down, they also go for really, really heavy strings. We're moving to the low E now, by the way. Let's see. Okay. And the idea is that going with a heavier string equals heavier tone, and I am of the opinion that that's actually the opposite. Going lighter in gauge produces, in my opinion, a heavier tone. Why? Because the string is looser and moves more, and there's more of a twang to it. When it's a really thick string, and it's bright and it's snappy. When you use a really thick string, the tone is going to be darker, not as snappy. You don't have that meow kind of, for lack of a better term, of course. It's a technical term, meow, you know. You don't have as much of that twang to it when it's really thick and it doesn't move. I mean, if you're going for a Angus Young kind of tone where he was using freaking telephone wire tuned to standard pitch, go for it. I mean, that's a very particular tone that he had. So if that's what you're going for, then that would be the way to do it. But I am from the Black Sabbath, Tony Iommi school of thinking, where if you want to sound heavy, you actually go lighter in gauge. I mean, who sounded heavier than Tony Iommi? You know, nobody. So I like using as light a string gauge as I can get away with. I normally tune to B standard and use 11 to 48 or 11 to 49, whatever it is. Tension-wise, it's what a set of 8s would be tuned to standard pitch. That's how I like it. I'm used to playing that way, and I actually find the intonation's a lot better as well. Speaking of which, the intonation is done. The neck is straight. That's another thing too. I set my neck straight. I try not to give it any relief. I find that if you did your job in installing frets, leveling the frets properly, you can have a straight neck with low action and no buzzing. So that's what's happened here. Now we're going to adjust the pickup height. I start with the bridge pickup. I get the bridge pickup as close as I can for maximum output. And the way I do it is a lot of people will fret down, you know, the high and low string at the highest fret and then move the pickup right up close to the string. I don't like to do it that way because I find that if I dig in really heavy, the string is actually gouging the pickup, and as a result I have a bunch of old pickups with gouges on them where the string was just sawing away at the cap. So what I've come to do on my guitars is, in playing position, I tend to pick towards the center, you know, between the pickups. What I do is I'll take the high E string and I'll press down until the string hits the last fret, in this case the 22nd fret. I hold it there and then I adjust the pickup up to that string. This makes it so that anytime throughout my playing, it's never going to touch the pickup. So I do the high E side usually first, and then I do the same thing with the low E side. Then I check again, make sure the adjustment didn't change. And there you go. So no matter how heavy I palm mute, the string is never going to hit the pickup. So that's as close to the string as I can get the pickup. This is an 81 and an 85. The 85 is actually higher output than the 81, but a lot of people don't know that. Or a lot of people think that the 85 is a neck pickup. No, it isn't. Early EMGs, the 81, the 85, the 60, and the 58, which is the hidden secret. That pickup is amazing. Those pickups weren't designed for any particular position. It just so happened that over time, this became the standard, largely in part probably due to Slayer and Zakk Wylde, who used the 81-85 combination. But either one will work. I tend to, I've done enough EMGs in my time that I can usually get it close to where they should be just by looking at it. I usually tend to set the neck pickup at the level of the fretboard, right up, not the fret, but the fretboard itself. I find that if I get it there, when I switch between pickups, it's usually close, or, you know, I'll adjust it, make some fine adjustments at that point. But this guitar is set up, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to replace the strings and then put on the new string lock, because I can't obviously put them on like this. So sacrificial set of strings. Awesome sounding strings, these SIT Pro Steels. Highly recommend them. You want to sound heavy, use these stainless steel strings by SIT. So yeah, next is the playthrough. Lighting here is crappy, but here's a video of Gibson Invader 85 and its cousin 85 Les Paul Custom, also with a Kaler. Same finish, charcoal gray. Pretty nice, I think. Yeah, let's see. Can I get in there a little bit? Yeah. Oh, there we go.